Hi, Troy Love.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Navigating life as usual, so that's all we can do.
Oh, it's an adventure.
Yes, yes, it is. So some days more than others. So we're grateful to have a number of people joining us. We welcome questions from them. But yeah, I mentioned before I hit the record button that I've had so many people, talk about the addict getting caught up in the shame and it being almost debilitating for them. Or the flip side, I've had, a few partners too that are like filled with shame that they stayed. It's like how did I not see this? And the what's wrong with me, and even sometimes having other people go, "What's wrong with you that you stayed?" So that shame that's flowing over them as well. So I invited them to come to this because I said that you are very good at unpacking that and giving tools to use to do things differently.
Well,
But
thank you.
since we don't have any questions, comments or thoughts upon that.
Well,
Uh,
I think that's part of the reason why some people are afraid to share their story with friends and family because they're afraid they're going to be shamed. They're going to be told you're dumb for staying, are you crazy? Or they're going to think that your partner is creepy. So they're battling shame already, which shame usually leads us to keep secrets. So the addicts are dealing with shame because they're afraid of what people are going to perceive them as, and so they keep that all in. And then the spouses are also dealing with that. So being able to have places like this where we don't shame you is really helpful. Not everybody in the world has the space or the tolerance to be able to handle some of that. So that's why we've created these drop-in groups and the webinars for people so they do have a place to go where they can not feel so alone. So that's part of it. I love the prodependence model that uh, Dr. Weiss has created about there's nothing wrong with you wanting to help someone who's struggling, and yes, having boundaries is important, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to love on somebody and want to help them grow. At at the end of the day, um, we all have stuff, and I think that's part of helping us work through the shame is recognizing we none of us are perfect. We all make choices that we wish we could take back sometimes, and how do we move on with grace and love and kindness for ourselves and each other. And that's the question I think at least I'm trying to figure out for the rest of my life. So
One of the things I've noticed, another pattern is a betrayed partner. I'm going to use male and female, male addict, female partner, just for pronoun ease. But she goes to his parents or family and says, "This is what's going on," and is hopeful that they'll go, "Oh my gosh, we want to help our, loved one, our son, or whatever," and the pushback, or the
yeah,
like the complete disconnect. And so when you talked about finding safe people, it is challenging because you would think, oh, they want to help, but I was like, oh, but they come from, they've got a lot of reasons why they would be heavily invested in not having to deal with a problem. So but now they even can be more blamed. The blaming can go, well, it's you, it's not our son. And
right.
like the complete lack of support that comes within that system then makes it can make a partner feel really so isolated and alone.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. And I think they sometimes have this idea of how they think it's going to go, and then it doesn't go that way, and then more wounds are created and more wounds get opened up. So part of that is figuring out, where do I go to be able to talk about this stuff? Who can hold space? Where am I going to get the most support that will be helpful? And um, there's there are resources for all of that. So
And to speaking of resources, you mentioned the drop-in group. So every Friday you are hosting a men's drop-in group to talk about these, specific issues. It's free. It is not recorded, so you can't watch a video. It really is the connection within the group. And then alternating Thursdays, Troy is on with partners on, again, on our website. Alternating Thursdays to talk about attachment wounds and shame and all of those things, and to help process through. And then additionally, he does the attachment wound work group, which is different. So that's very different than all of these experiences. It is paid, everything else is free, but it is paid, but to process through in a 6-week course for 90 minutes. He goes over a little bit, but who's gonna tell on that, but to have that that consistency, and to really be able to do that continuation of the work, that deeper work is, I think a gift. So, okay, we have a question. Thank you for asking a question. I struggle with a betrayal trauma at home with my wife, 3 years from discovery, and I have 32 months of sobriety. My wife gets triggered and can be in trauma brain for days at a time. I ask for timeouts when the conversation is going south, but she gets angry and feels abandoned, alone, and says, "You are running away and sweeping things under the rug." I am trying to protect myself from the rage, blame, shaming, and need to take breaks with my words. Actions aren't helping us. The shame shadows come out, and I need to tend to myself to stop myself from saying or doing something hurtful. How do we balance putting the oxygen mask on ourselves and helping our hurting partner when they are in trauma brain and very hurt and angry? We have many CSATs involved in couples therapy. She's in S-Anon. I do my groups here and on SAA.
All right. So I love that you are identifying that your shame shadows come out, because that will hijack it every time. You have identified that it's been 3 years and you have 32 months of sobriety. So congratulations about that. As your wife is getting triggered and she's reacting, she's going into the fight or flight response. I'm curious what shadow, like you're identifying the shadows, which ones are coming out. I'm guessing the judge for sure, and the impotent one, the judge telling you that you're a horrible husband, and the impotent one saying that there's nothing you can do about this. Both of those are not true. And so part of that is figuring out, how do I be able to ground myself? And this is hard to do in the moment. So it takes some practice outside of the moment. But what do you know to be true about you? What do you know to be true about you as a human? Not that you're perfect, but what do you know to be true? That you're enough, that you matter, that you care about your wife, that you are striving to do the right thing, those kind of things. So if you know that's true, then what you can also understand is that what's happening here is your wife is being triggered, and she's turning to you to share her pain, maybe not in the most healthy way, but she's turning to you, trying to help you know that she's hurting. And then the shame will hijack that and you'll pull away because it's scary. So part of what you can do is being able to practice like 10 times a day doing this, is being able to think of a time recently when she got triggered and she was raging and blaming, just for a moment, and then taking a deep breath and connecting with your truth, and being able to breathe into that, and being able to almost imagine that as you're breathing into it, like light is coming inside of you, and you're creating like it's more like I've had clients describe it as like a sphere of light. So it's not a barrier, but it's like a sphere of light. So it's a form of protection, but it's not creating a wall. Like some people will think about being in a bubble and there's like a barrier. But no, I'm going to let this light just continue to shine brighter and brighter. And as I do that, it helps me be able to be grounded. And I'm going to lean in and I'm going to hear her pain and I'm going to do my best to just empathize. You're really scared. You are afraid, you're worried that things are going on, and being able to create the foundation upon which she's been needing you to do anyway. Like, what's happened is that part of the betrayal is that she thought that the foundation that she was on was solid, and then she found out it wasn't, and so now her world is spinning. And so the more that you're able to lean into that and hold space, and practice that, the easier it becomes. So you actually have to think of a time when she's mad and then help transition yourself into that grounded space. And the more you can do that over and over and over during the day, then when it actually happens, you will be able to pull that off a little bit better. It sounds like you really do care about her, and I'm sure she feels awful about what she says after. Her own shame shows up, but in that moment, she's not thinking very clearly either because she's in fight or flight mode. So her brain is going into protection mode, and so she says things she doesn't mean, and you probably do things you don't mean. So being able to connect with your truth, and that this isn't really about you. Yes, it's about some of the behaviors, but this is not about you right now. This is about her and her pain. And out of all the humans on the planet who could actually show up for her, she's turning to you. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I've got some practical considerations. I'm going because when you say you're taking a break, like I am assuming, and I know that's dangerous, but I'm assuming that that's you guys have talked about, when these things happen, if one of us, either of us, are taking a break, it's for a specified period of time, that so that's why I'm kind of wondering, if she's saying you're running away, taking a break is very different. And if you're having that conversation when things are not heated up about it's kind of the rules of engagement. This is what we're going to do. And if I see this happening, or like even asking her when you get triggered, what is it that you are looking for? And if she, is looking for you to take on a whole bunch of shame and guilt, yeah, obviously that isn't going to be helpful. So what is it that, when she is triggered? I'm also curious because, and I would invite her to join the many betrayed partner drop-in groups, including Troy's. I mean, to talk about working on those shame things. But from a codependent lens, S&on, great, take what you need, leave the rest, but they still talk codependence and that pathologizing. There's something wrong with, a betrayed partner. So again, the connection is great and helpful. Debbie Allen last month did a webinar on our site, a 3-circle plan for betrayed partners. I thought that was really helpful because, if somebody's triggered, they're in that middle circle, that yellow circle. So what is it that they can lean to, that is out, if she's got S&on friends and CSATs and all of that, there are so many tools that she's gaining. So it just feels like, she's having difficulty picking those up and feeling safe, but if there's rules of engagement, like, okay, I'm going to check on you in 20 minutes and we're going to see, if we're in a space where we can have a productive conversation, not quite yet. Okay. But like a time frame that I will be back, so that it isn't, I'm running away. I'm taking a break. I'm going to take care of me so that I can show up for you. But, this is the time frame. I'm setting my timer on my phone, so there is accountability with that. But there's a lot of support for her, and S&on, like I said, great. But I think that there's more that would be helpful. We have a betrayed partner. We have a betrayed partner work group that starts again in August, and there's practical tools about healthy boundaries and communication and things like that. So those Angela Spearman teaches those. They're really good and helpful information. So Don't give up. You guys, like, yes, it's messy right now, but you guys are still there in it. So, just getting the right tools and knowing how to use them. Oh, one more thing I was thinking of, the Karpman drama triangle. I've shared with a few people. I'm trying to figure out how to do a live presentation on that. I haven't figured it out yet because it really is better if you see it played out. But when these are the patterns that we're doing, you do this, I do this, you do this, I do this, like, and somebody stepping off, yes, you can, you're disrupting the system, but that's what it takes, is somebody stepping off that cycle to, but hopefully together finding out what's going to be useful for us moving forward, not just I'm stepping off and running away, but, we're shifting this because we want it to be, a good pattern, not a negative one. Okay, so my husband took videos of himself while having sex with a single woman. Is that
A
what
sex
that's what?
worker.
Oh, a sex worker. Oh my gosh, there's so many letters I get. I'm so sorry. With a sex worker, and he had lots of sex with 2 women at a time. And are this type of behavior part of addiction?
Yes. That doesn't mean that all sex addicts do this kind of behavior, but that is definitely a part of addiction. And there's some attachment stuff going on underneath all of that. Patrick Carnes has 10 types of sex addiction, and that would fall into one of those. So paying for sex is a type of sex addiction. So absolutely. And what that tells me is that there's some deeper stuff going on with him, that hopefully he is getting some help with a CSAT who can help him unpack all that, because it's there's a lot.
And I'm working on, in the chat, I'm putting on the Seeking Integrity site, it's a quick self-assessment. Like when guys are coming to our residential program, we do 4 to 5 hours of assessment. So this is not the same, but it's a quick little self-assessment, and getting the score of what that is, kind of identifies. And like with alcoholism, it isn't how much you drink, it isn't what you're drinking, it's what the negative consequences are. That's high risk behavior. A, STDs. B, those videos. For many people, having videos like that out and about. I mean, we hear all the time about people getting blackmailed. I'm going to send this to your wife. I'm going to send this to your business colleagues. To your job. I'm going to send this to your children. I mean, it gets really nasty. So it's high risk behavior from a lot of standpoints, and it's the secrets and lies and things as well. So that's about your husband. Let's talk about you. What support are you getting for you? This is highly traumatic. I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry you need to be here. But I'm glad you're here because, there's a lot of support. You didn't cause this. Nothing you did or didn't do, caused this. So here you are. About these videos. I suspect you've seen the videos, and I'm sorry that's graphic images that you didn't need to see. But what support do you need? We mentioned the drop-in groups; those are free. I mentioned the Betrayed Partner work group that starts in August, online course. Creating healthy boundaries for your safety. It's for your safety, your needs, your emotional safety, physical safety, financial safety, spiritual safety. Some use relationship safety. There's different ways, but those are the 4 containers that I look at. And it's not about you did this, so therefore, it's like, I need these things. I want you to step into this space. Not ever, somebody in active addiction, can't. But I'm going to say this too, and then I will shut up. But it's one of those where, until the negative consequences are such, no addict, and I don't care what form of addiction it is, no addict is going to get the help that they need until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. So as long as it's just the usual, and I'm going to use nagging, and I don't mean it to sound, but it's like the Charlie Brown, nah, I'm used to that. And I can't imagine giving up, this dopamine and this adrenaline and all of these things. And it's scary to reach into vulnerability and connection. So, so I hope you're, leading in. If you haven't already done so, reach out to me. TAMI at Seeking Integrity. I'll send you, we've got podcast videos. I mean, we got all kinds of support for you, as you go through this too. But that quick self-assessment, I just put the link. It's on our homepage on Seeking Integrity too. Anything else, Troy, before we go to the next one? Okay, the next question is, how can the betrayed partner curtail their fear and ultimately the anger? I'm the betrayed partner of an SA for over 8 years. I also have betrayal wounds from living in a home with an alcoholic mother and emotionally despondent, quick to anger father. I know my patterns and my wounding, but I struggle greatly when I become triggered, particularly when my partner becomes defensive, gaslights, avoids, or behaves in ways that remind me of a child. I become so angry and hurt. What can I do? This is right in your wheelhouse. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want you to curtail your anger, and I don't want you to curtail your fear. I don't want you to become rageful and lash out, but anger comes from a sense that something has been taken from you without your permission. And fear comes from a sense that something bad has happened and you're powerless to stop it. So sometimes we don't feel like we have a voice to share our fear. We don't have a voice to share our anger. And so we shove it down, and then it will explode. And then we regret what we do after that. You've already been able to identify that this is very much coming from wounds of growing up, and those wounds keep being hit. So wounds of an alcoholic mom who probably lied and gaslit and avoided and didn't take responsibility, and now you're married to a person who's doing the same thing, which my philosophy about that is that's our attempt to resolve the stuff from our past. So we find people in our life who do the exact same thing, even though it doesn't make any sense, because we want a different outcome. So hopefully there's a place where you can share your anger, and it may or may not be your partner. If your partner's done some work, they can hold space and hear it. But doing that in a group or doing that with a therapist and being able to share, we have one of the activities that sometimes I'll have betrayed partners do is what's called a losses poster. And they map out all the things that they have lost because of their partner's behaviors over the years. And they get angry when they do that. And of course they do. So being able to honor that you're angry because things happened without your permission, and being able to give yourself permission in a safe container to express all that. Once we've been able to move through that anger, and I know that it gets triggered again with the gaslighting and stuff, but when we're able to move through the anger and not get it stuck, and we move through the fear and we don't get it stuck, you come to the other side of that where you now are able to feel more grounded because you've released the energy, and you've been able to stay more grounded, and then you're able to make some decisions that are rational decisions, not emotional decisions. You're able to figure out what is going to be in your best interest. You're going to be able to have a better ability to have boundaries that you're able to enforce, because it's not coming from an emotional place. It's coming from a grounded place because you've moved through the emotion. So sometimes having a therapist give you space to do that is helpful, or going to a group where you're able to share that, or just having a friend who can honor and cry with you. All of that would be helpful. So those are some of the things I do. I would encourage you journaling. It's another way. There's lots of ways that we can move through our emotions besides trying to shove them down.
Yeah, I just wrote a blog on anger. It was the topic kept coming up in different ways, and so I wrote a blog that's going to be posted on Seeking Integrity soon. But for me, anger is the outward of hurt, because I don't want to feel hurt. I don't like feeling hurt. It's not fun, and anger, is more powerful and outward focused, and I got to tell you, like, I can get that righteous anger and really like that and hone into that. And wasn't serving me well. And so I did, like Troy talked about, doing some work with professionals. I did some EMDR on, some specific things, and and it helped so dramatically that the rage, that point of rage, I have not experienced that again. I'm not kidding, since I did the work on that, and incredibly grateful, because that wasn't helping me, and it was destructive. But yeah, I understand, and I think some of the stuff with boundaries for you, but even telling your partner, the story I'm telling myself when you're avoiding is that you're not committed to the relationship. The story I'm telling myself, it comes out in a different way. It gets the message across of, this is what I'm seeing, and having a conversation rather than, than that body, filled of anger. But yeah, I mean, anger serves a purpose. I think fear too, false evidence appears real. I keep that, I've got that on my computer screen, because like I have to continue to go, is this real? Like, is there a real danger? And if so, yeah, I absolutely need to, address it, or is this, I'm tapping back into all of that old stuff and I'm afraid, and then I do a lot of, and I haven't had to do it as much lately, but if the very worst thing happens, will I be okay? And you know what? Yeah, I mean, like when I think it through, if the very worst thing happens, I'll still be okay. And that is, um, that is helpful for me to hold that vision of, like, I've got support, I've got people, I will help, I will have support to navigate this, even if the very worst thing happens. So, okay, next question, Troy. I've been shamed by not telling my family of origin the details of what I discovered about my betrayer 1 year ago this week. They know that I discovered a tremendous amount of deception, but not the details about the story addiction, the intense badgering and active shaming via phone calls from 3 of them to tell my mother in particular carried on for months. They continue to hold my need for boundaries about the details against me. I am sure that my decision to withhold the details was right for me, and feel especially validated by after reading Michelle May's identifiable qualities that make someone safe. Still, I feel the pain of judgment, the criticism, and the withholding on their part of general caring and love. Thank you for your input. Wow.
Well, that would explain why you didn't tell him.
Hmm.
I don't mean to laugh, but what I'm
No.
hearing is that they weren't safe. And you probably knew that from the beginning. And then their behavior is evidence that they're not safe. I mean, I have absolutely no knowledge of your family of origin things. What I pick up on as I'm reading that is like some enmeshment. Like enmeshment is family members like to be all up in other family members' business. And that may be what's going on here. And when we do that, it's usually because then we don't have to deal with our own stuff. So for some reason, your family just feels like they really need to know all these details, and they don't. It's your story, it's your partner's story, and you get to pick who you're going to share it with and who you're not. Brene Brown has a acronym for BRAVE, and you can go look that up, but it's it is, the acronym stands for what you need from somebody in order to feel like they're safe. And things like they're not going to shame you, they're going to keep it in confidence, they're not going to gossip about it with other people. Those different criteria of what makes a person safe, you can use that criteria and then look at your family, and if they don't match, then there's no need for you to continue to allow that shame to beat you up because you were doing what was right for you. So I honor your decision not to share.
Yeah, my heart breaks for you, because like, I don't think your family knowing everything. Dr. Rob talks all the time. Thanksgiving dinner is really awkward. When people know details and the stories that they'll make up about it in their heads. Most people don't understand, addiction versus offender and all of those type of things. Um, uh, and I don't know what you need to do for your healthy boundaries, but I was kind of wondering if you said, thank you for caring about me and my safety. I'm taking care of me, and just know that I've got this, I've got, qualified support and all of those things. And like, I'd almost, whatever they say, I just keep saying the same thing back, and they're not going to be happy about it. But as long as you're holding up this is my safe protection, for me, and there's certain people I've chosen not to be, in real connection with, because they aren't safe, and it's of course family people, but that's just where I need to be for things. So lean into, again, we've got all kinds of support for you. And I did catch that, a year ago this week. So I get that this is an extra sensitive time for you. And it's, so here you are, this is a different day. You're leaning into this. Again, the betrayed partner drop-in groups that we have throughout the week, whatever support, you need, take care of you. It's your family's, they can go take care of themselves. Okay. My PA claims to be healed in 2007. He spilled his stuff with me in the past, or I didn't do anything to heal. In 2022, he played sex adult video gaming, trying to get my attention. He started in 2018 after our daughter died. This would be number 5. He asked for forgiveness, and for myself, I did. I'm not ready to reconcile. He says if I give him sex, he will do all I ask, except getting a qualified professional, a CSAT. He fantasizes about me and even used me as a model for his porn. He says it's a relapse. But he is not an addict. Thoughts? Wow. Mind blown.
Yeah, well, I think there's a heck of a lot of denial going on there. We can heal and we can do a lot of things, but the wiring in our brain around addiction never goes away. We can create new neural pathways to learn how to cope with things better, but the old neural pathways still exist. So I get skeptical when somebody says, I'm healed.
Yeah.
It's like, and then the behavior shows that he isn't in recovery. So,
but Troy's not an addict.
Well, I don't know him, so I can't
Yeah.
give a diagnosis, but his behaviors are telling me that he's doing things that are not honoring him and they're not honoring you. And then he sets up these things like, I'll do everything you want if you give me sex, accept this and accept this and accept that. Well, that's not doing everything you want. And to me, that's not even a healthy thing to use sex as a tool to try and manipulate somebody is abusive, in my opinion, and I'm not a fan. So my thoughts are he's not in recovery, and you identified you haven't done anything to heal back then. You're here, so you're doing something to help start taking care of you. And my encouragement to you is work on you and connect with your truth and your core worth and breathe into that and let that guide how you're going to move forward.
Yeah. And, but there's really so much here. I'm going to be careful. Want to talk about you again. How do you feel about him saying, and I know he says he's not an addict, but you can't be in recovery if you're not an addict and working on a recovery program. That's a complete disconnect. But I want to know, how do you feel about him use me as a model for his porn? Like, how do you feel about that? Maybe you feel great. Maybe you feel objectified. Maybe you feel like you're just another body part, or he's using you for his sexual gratification and he's not connecting with you as a person. I hate when I just hate when I hear, if you give me sex, then, I'll do whatever. And, that's so manipulative. And, that's transactional. You do this for me, and then I'll do that, except for, of course, all of his qualifiers. So, okay. So I really hope that you do choose to do healing for you. Our drop-in groups, I've said them before. Email me, Tammy, TAMI @seekingintegrity.com. I will give you all kinds of links to all kinds of stuff. I would so encourage you to join the Betrayed Partner work group that starts in August. There are other resources, but I'll give all of those. But I say this all the time, whatever he says, I don't believe. It's what his actions are doing, and his actions are going, I'm demanding this. Oh, and I'm fantasizing about you, and maybe you, I don't, that's showing my personal. I would not be happy with somebody objectifying me as part of their porn and not being in a relationship with me. And I'm going to take out any, anything that could be the same for you. So I will leave that as neutral, whatever's right for you. But I'm so glad you're here, and if we can help, let us know. Okay, back to the couple that is struggling with triggers. Yes, but she will often stonewall the break and not agree to come back in 30 minutes when I ask for a 30-minute break. Her abandonment wound will come up, and she will basically deny the break, saying that me breaking is me going on into avoidance behavior and running away. I tried to circle back 3 times on 3 different locations around the city on Sunday, and each time she left and went somewhere else, like trying to find a space and telling me, I don't have anything to say to you, then leaving again. Cartman drama triangle for sure. So that's really challenging, because if it's an agreed to break, like if you have talked in advance that we will take a break and someone isn't willing to show up, what do you do with that, Troy?
Well, so John Gottman's research says that it takes somebody on average 20 minutes when they're flooded to calm down, but that's on average. So some people, it may take a lot longer. So what I'm hearing is that you're needing 30 minutes to calm down, but when you try to come back, she's not calmed down. She's still flooded and angry, and so she's running away. So I don't know if you both are in couples counseling. Somebody who specializes in Sue Johnson's emotionally focused couples therapy might be helpful, because this is a pattern that I'm hearing, is that when one of you does this, the other one of you does that, and then the other one of you does this, and then the other one of you does that. And how do we break that pattern? So it's trying to have these conversations when you're not being triggered, and coming up with a plan, seeing if that plan works. If the plan doesn't work, then trying something else, but being able to help each other understand this pattern, this Cartman triangle pattern that you're in, you've been using it to try and deal with a lot of pain. Is there another way that we could work through that and break the pattern? And you may not be able to do that with just the 2 of you. You may need to have somebody who can hold some space and create a voice for both of you in order to do that, like with a qualified couples counselor who is able to help you dissect that pattern.
Yeah, and I'd be very curious, what is her hope for the relationship? What is she looking for? What are both of you looking for? If it's healing for the relationship, how do we, where we are right now, navigate that, so that each of us have, support, and not just from each other, but, can find the path forward. So, yeah, I mean, it's I appreciate what Troy said too about different time frames. For maybe she needs an hour. Like even just having that information, could be useful too. But it is challenging, because like if I if I'm trying to live up to, like, if we agree to this, then it's challenging for either person. If one of them is unwilling or unable, I guess, I don't know which, to show up then. So a tweak to the plan, hopefully there's something else to try. Okay, my partner, who is addicted to porn, during our relationship, never asked me for pictures to masturbate to. Once I found out about his infidelity, it hurt me more that he never asked for pictures, because when I confronted him about it, he said he did not want to get off to me, but is sexually attracted to me, and we have sex. It's still hard to understand that aspect of his addiction, where he can be attracted to me but does not want to masturbate to me.
So the truth is that when he's masturbating to a picture or a movie or something, he's not seeing that person as a human. They're an object to him. And so it's interesting how addicts can compartmentalize
Mhm.
their behavior sometimes. Um, so he doesn't want to spoil, it doesn't work, but he doesn't want to spoil the relationship with you. He's not wanting to objectify you. He wants to see you as a human, but he will absolutely do that to some other person, some other individual. And so it's um, what I'm hearing is that it's bumping up against a rejection wound and a betrayal wound for you, because part of what your shadows are telling you is that because he hasn't asked for pictures of you, he's not attracted to you. And that is likely not the case at all. He probably is very much attracted to you. His porn addiction isn't actually about attraction. It's more about numbing, and it's more about playing out scenarios in his head that he thinks subconsciously he thinks are going to help him heal from past pain and past trauma. And so it is very common that they wouldn't ask their partner for pictures in this kind of situation. And it doesn't mean that they don't care about you or that they don't find you attractive. Like, it's almost like if you can separate the two and look at his behavior and his looking at porn as actually not about sex at all, it's about something else. And he can work on that, and then figuring out how to like continue to see you as human and cultivate a real live intimate relationship with you would be helpful.
Yeah, yeah, and that is, Dr. Rob does all the time. Come here, push away. Come here, push away. And that is, that's the challenge. For addicts is, the compartmentalization. I want you close, and I want you to stay away because I have this whole secret life and secret behaviors. Okay, Troy, the next one. Can my spouse be addicted to me? He claims I say no more than yes to sex and I did nothing to keep him from being tempted. I know it isn't my fault. He seems to be obsessed with sex and cannot have any relationship without sex. He calls it the lubricant. He keeps coming up with these diseases and I need to fix them. Again, can he be addicted to me?
Well, so they do have people who say they're love addicts. And so they're addicted to the relationship, I guess. When I'm reading and obviously this is just a few sentences, I don't think that that's addiction to you. I think he's addicted to sex, and he can't, you said it, he can't have a relationship without sex. So he's got this core belief going on that life without sex is impossible. And so then he uses you as his sex toy, basically. So he doesn't see you as human. He has objectified you. So he doesn't see you like that. So he's addicted to sex and all the stuff that goes with it, and you happen to be part of that package. So um, at the end of the day, it sounds like he could really use some help in breaking through that, and I'd be curious how you feel about that. Like, as he's obsessed with you, and he can't not be in a sexual relationship with you, and he's wanting you to fix him. Like, how does that affect you, and are you okay continuing to live like that, or do some things need to change?
I had put in the chat, there's a link to the little quick self-assessment. That might be a good place to start. The number of yeses. And again, I often ask, so we have support sessions and they're not therapy or treatment. They're 25 or 50 minutes and they can be helpful. But part of that, I often say, please go take this assessment and give me the number, because the number that you score, will guide, what resources are provided. If someone's at this number, then that's a good resource. If somebody's at this number, then it's a different, so just getting, like you talk about diseases, like having the right diagnosis, then what direction to go. Dr. Rob often says, and I agree, we aren't addicted to a person, but the love addiction is like the graduate level of sex addiction, and it's highly manipulative. So that's a whole nother topic. And Dr. Rob has done a number of webinars and things on that as well. So glad you're here. There's resources for you, but I would really, suggest starting with that online assessment, because you'll have just kind of a snapshot of, this may be what we're up against. Okay, next question. Hi to both of us. How do I get past the shame of being scared to be vulnerable with anyone in my life? I never speak in meetings. Oh, and I'm too shy. I wish I could have the courage to do the healing chair in your groups. How do I get past my shame of speaking?
Look at you. You just put it out there, so that's amazing. So I'm going to invite you the next time that I'm assuming you're in the women's group, because the men have a sign-up sheet. So, but I will invite you to step into the chair and do it on that if you are willing. However, so as you've watched me do it with other people, what shadows show up for you? Is the politician showing up? Is the judge showing up? Is the politician saying, "Oh my gosh, don't speak up because you're probably going to say something stupid, and everybody's going to think you're dumb, and they're just going to be just so shocked that you just don't even know what you're talking about." And then the judge is going to say, "Oh, you're probably going to say something stupid, so you just need to just not say anything, and you're not worth speaking up, and you don't matter, and look at all these other people." So then the martyr shows up, and they probably need this time more than you. So I would imagine that's who shows up. So as
it's a whole group.
I know, right? So one of the ways to do that is to figure out which of the shadows are showing up. And then I would invite you to write down, get a piece of paper for each one of them, and just write down a couple of messages in second person that they say to you. So I don't speak up in meetings, or I don't show up in other ways in my life. So who shows up and what do they say? And then you just kind of look at them like you're writing it in second person. And then I want you to ask yourself, would you ever say that to somebody that you love? Are those the kind of messages that you would say? No, probably not. What do you need to hear that would help you be able to step into that courage? And then can you write that message to yourself? So getting another piece of paper and saying, "Dear self," and say the messages to yourself. Can you ask a person that you love, that you trust, it says that you're scared of being vulnerable with anyone. So I'm hearing that there's been a lot of betrayal and a lot of rejection and probably a lot of abandonment. And so we're afraid because we feel like it's going to be really, really, really bad. And the only way to kind of work through that is to put a toe in the water. So test it out with something that's not huge, but is there a way I could open up and share a little bit and see how that goes? And can I test this and see if it works? And I used the acronym BRAVE earlier, and the same here. Like, what are the characteristics of somebody that you need to be able to show up for you? And can you assess this person and see if they meet that criteria? And would that help? So those are some tools that you can use. But I would also invite you to step in the chair with me. I'll walk you through it. So you're there. I would be more than willing to help you with that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're posting on this. And you know what I mentioned earlier, fear, false evidence appears real. Like, I can make up this whole giant story in my life, of like, this is what's going to happen, and it's going to be so horrible, and I'm going to die. No, I'm not. I'm still here. So But I have also found for myself that if I own, like, Troy, I have something to tell you and I'm really scared to say it. It takes the energy out of it. And like, I get this a lot, honestly, with I put the link in the support session. It's just a thought, it's an invitation. But I get a lot of people that come on those support sessions that say, this is the first time I've ever talked about it. And, we work to create a safe container for that. But again, I know for sure that if you are able to, join Troy on that, please don't avoid the meeting because of fear. But if you're able to join and just say, I'm really scared to do this, but I need to do that. I like the dipping the toe in. I know that the other people in those groups are going to go, yay, you're so brave for doing that. And it just kind of dissipates that fear. But I hear somebody who is caught up in shame that's holding you back from connecting to other people that will help you, heal, that you can help them too. Like, they're missing out on connecting with you too. So I hope you courageously step into that space. So okay, I'm both an essay and a betrayed partner. I'm struggling with the denial when it comes to my wife's infidelity. I understand that this is a natural part of grief, but sometimes I just feel like I'm stuck here. Is it shame that is keeping me in denial? Is there a healthy path forward without grieving?
So no, there is not a healthy path forward without grieving. There's loss going on. There's betrayal that's going on. So as I'm looking at that, there's questions that I have, like, do you need your partner to admit their infidelity? Are you wanting your partner to apologize for what they did? Is your partner not admitting? Is like, do you know for sure that happened? And I'm not questioning that. It's like, is it out there already, I guess is what I'm saying. And then what do you need in order to move forward? So part of the grieving process is coming to a place of acceptance. So we will be angry and we will try to barter and we will express our sadness. And then eventually we do settle into a place of acceptance and identifying, well, that happened. How do we move forward? What part did I play? What part did my partner play? How do we create a new relationship now that is not based on the infidelity of either of us in the past? What do we do to create something new? And the challenge with that is you really can't do that if you keep holding on to the past. But you can't just drop it. You need to go through the grieving process. So part of that is saying goodbye to the old relationship, asking yourself, is there anything that my partner can do to help me let this go? Can you ask your partner for that? If they're not in a space to do that, can you move forward without your partner doing that or not? Those are some of the questions I'd be asking you if you were working with me.
I'm going to jump to the end, and this is a response to the person that just shared. This is, please speak at the meeting. We really want to hear you. You are so important. So please take that as an invitation to do so. Okay, the next question, Troy. My PA says he is sober. He says he's sober. Asked me for forgiveness, so we should reconcile. When am I going to get over this? You betrayed me before marriage when you didn't share your rapes with me. They are very hurtful and I tend to lash out. Then he uses this against me. He says he will do things, but if I don't respond the way he wants, he takes it all back. I see no recovery, trying to find healing, but struggle with his narcissistic tendencies. Separation leads to divorce, according to him. What now?
Well, I'm hearing that he is using manipulation against you. I'm hearing that he has these expectations, forgiveness, that means we should reconcile. I'm hearing that he's demanding that you get over this. Well, we get over it when we're ready to get over it. And so it sounds like he's really uncomfortable that you haven't moved on with your life. And that's too bad for him, because these sound like some pretty egregious things that you're still working through. So if he can't give you space to heal and he just keeps demanding, that's not going to help either of you. So what do you want to do is my question.
Yeah, and separation leads to divorce. It depends, it, people talk about therapeutic separation, and with a therapeutic separation, there's a plan and there's accountability. And yeah, I put in there action, not words. He says he's sober. When I read that first little bit, I was like, that addicts say they lie to themselves. We lie to ourselves as well as everyone else. So unless you're seeing changes, and I don't, I often suggest that betrayed partners go see an attorney and find out what their legal rights are, because otherwise it's all this scary stuff. So just having the information, but really healthy boundaries for you. What do you need? Forgiveness is what I do for myself, not for the other person. But this is like forgive and forget, like, okay, see, I'm all good. And we should just stay. And so to me, this is really healthy boundaries for you, for your safety. And he feels very unsafe. But work with professionals, find out more about what a formal therapeutic separation is, what would be the goals, what would be the benchmarks, what would be the time frame to see changes. But I mentioned it earlier, addicts, as long as we can continue to keep things about the same, until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, we don't change. And so if he can continue to manipulate you, and do whatever he's going to do or not do, to me, he will continue that, unfortunately. And it's really unfortunate, because addicts, for us in recovery, our lives they're not magically blissful and all raindrops and lollipops, but man, oh man, living in integrity. I never go to bed at night trying to keep track of what lies I've told, or like living in guilt and shame. I don't, and that's a gift unto itself. And I have relationships with people that are real and meaningful and connected, and I can show up for them and they show up for me. So it's very different. So okay, how can the sex addict deal with fantasy sex dreams? I see that he is giving this an honest shot, but he feels as though his addict brain is running the show still. How can we approach intimacy in a healthy way that doesn't jeopardize his sobriety? And she continues, I feel like having any sexual intimacy might fuel this addiction. It has prevented us from having healthy sexual intimacy.
So Sue Johnson talks about 3 levels of sex. The first level of sex is sealed off sex, which is often the type of sex that addicts have, which is we don't really have any emotional investment. It's all about the orgasm, and it's all about the fantasy and all about all that stuff. The second level is solace sex, which actually doesn't necessarily have to involve intercourse, but is about seeking comfort from the other person. And then the third level of sex is called synchrony sex. And most couples don't ever get there, which is that you're so intimate, and I don't mean sexually, but you're so in tune, aligned with each other, that you're able to really have this magical dance that is very intimate and does involve sex, but it is a very deeper expression of love and connection. And most addicts don't know how to get there because they don't know how to manage their emotions. And so they're using sex to regulate their emotions. So if you're having sealed off sex, that probably does prevent you from having healthy intimacy. If you're able to lean in and talk and be open about that, you both can actually create a really healthy sex life that is intimate. His fantasies are different than his sex dreams. Like if he's having sexual dreams, most addicts regardless of their drug of choice, do have those kind of drug dreams. And that's just part of their brain, like playing out stuff. There's not a whole lot that people can do about the dreams themselves, but they can be open about when that happens and what gets triggered for them. But all of this is about being honest and understanding the fantasies is about something underneath that. And if you can figure out what that underneath is and have that open dialogue that's rarely about sex, that would help heighten the connection intimately with both of you, and you both could have a beautiful sex life.
Yeah, I often say, yeah, fantasies are more challenging because they're in your head, and you can be stuck in those without even showing. It isn't like I have to go do something on a phone or something, so it's challenging. But I think the more open you are about having the discussions about this. I'm really scared, having the ability to say I'm afraid, that changes things. So we are out of time. There's I read your question, and I'm going, get input from your recovery community, and they will give you tips and tools to use to create healthy boundaries. So Troy, thank you again. We'll see you at the end of August. And again, guys, join him on Fridays, Betrayed Partner Females. Now I can't remember, did we make the Betrayed Partner one? Is that mixed gender?
It is for betrayed partners of all genders.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I thought so. So because I've had a couple of male partners. Anyway, so check it out. It's on the Seeking Integrity site. This video will be posted there too. So thank you all. Thank you for the questions, and thank you, Troy, as always. All right, bye.